would like to give a brief explanation about the paper that I submit to the 5th International University Symposium on Humanities and Arts, or Inusharts 2020. So this paper is written by me, Novrizal Kamal, and co-written by Dr. Christina Suprihatin. And the title of our paper is Children Adventure in the Dutch East Indies in Weg uit. So let's hear it. Well, all of you guys know that there are so many books around children adventure, or maybe you have read some of those books like Alice's Adventure in Wonderland, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Tale of Peter Rabbit, or Pinocchio. Those are some amazing adventure fiction, and they have one thing in common: they present danger or give the reader a sense of excitement. Well, the book that I'm talking about right now, which is Hans Vervoordt Weg uit, is quite different. How come? Not only does it present dangers or give the reader a sense of excitement, this book also has educational purpose. Through this book, Hans Vervoordt wants to educate children in the Netherlands about what happened in the Dutch East Indies during Japanese occupation. So this book might be using fictional character, or the events that are portrayed in this book might be fictional too. But one thing to note that Hans Vervoordt itself experienced war in the Dutch East Indies. There are some fragments of his memories of living and experiencing life as a child in the Dutch East Indies being poured out in the book. We might all know that it is important for children to continuously learn and unlearn about history. It allows children to understand our past, which in turn allows them to understand the present. By learning about the cause and effect of events in history, children can learn better ways to deal with conflict or prevent bad things from happening again in the present world. So history matters for children, but the question is, how can children learn history? Hugus said that history can be done through educational media that is in line with children's cognitive abilities, one of which is children's storybook. Okay, now we got the answer that children's storybook can be a great medium for children to learn history. But the question is, how to present history that can be easy to understand and in line with the children's ability to process new information? Especially there will be a challenge in history learning for children, which is that many events in history contain elements of war, hatred, death, or revenge, which we might say that are not in line with children's world. This is how Weg uit plays an important role as a learning medium. It might be one of the appropriate sources for children in the Netherlands to learn more about history of the Dutch East Indies, because not only it entertains and gives the reader excitement, it also offers a glimpse of what was happening in the Dutch East Indies, yet present it in a honest and colorful way, in a sense that children will not find it difficult to understand the contents in this book. So, what is Weg uit? It's written by Hans Vervoordt, who was born in Magelang, April 22nd, 1939, and it was published by Uitgeverij Conserve in 2012. So, in short, Weg uit tells a story about two children, Hans and Sonja, in the Dutch East Indies during Japanese invasion in the 1940s. So, what makes Weg uit unique to be explored further? Children's adventure usually involve imagination and fantasy, but the adventure portrayed in Weg uit happened during war and based on a real-life phenomenon. Secondly, it's pretty strange to have the Dutch East Indies as an adventure space for children, because the Dutch East Indies was a conflicted area and there was war surrounding it. So it's not common for children to have an adventure there. These two aspects piqued my interest to dig deeper on the adventure that is presented in Weg uit. So the issue that I'm trying to raise here, knowing that Weg uit over different kind of adventure that involve war and conflicted area as its adventure space, and it's based on a real-life phenomenon, so it's kind goes against children's adventure in general that usually involve fantasy and imagination. So how is children's adventure presented in Weg uit? So our paper tried to answer two questions. First, how is children's adventure portrayed in Weg uit? And secondly, how is the Dutch East Indies portrayed as an adventure space for children? With this question, we intend to uncover how children's adventure is depicted in Weg uit. The method we use is close reading based on the theory of Biddle and others in 1989. Close reading is a comprehensive reading done to find the relationship between text and its idea, or in other words, post-reading to dig deeper what the text wants to convey and how it is conveyed. The analysis process will be in 4 steps. First of all, we read the text carefully to obtain general understanding of text. Secondly, we examine intrinsic elements of the text like characterization, plot, and setting. Thirdly, we reread the text and try to understand the elements that could give us insight. And lastly, we synthesize and do descriptive interpretation of the collected data obtained from the previous step. The collected data could be in forms of fragments, words, phrase, or sentence. So the concept of adventure that we use is adventure according to the Amasa and Gardner. The Amasa said that an adventure is an event or series of events that happen outside the course of the protagonist's ordinary life, usually accompanied by danger, often by physical action. While Gardner said that there are 4 things that adventure fiction have in common. They are heroic protagonist, a journey or quest, unusual location, action, and danger. So we have the conceptual framework of what adventure is. Now, what is the general finding of the first reading of Weg uit. First, although Weg uit tells the story of an adventure carried out by 2 children, but the main character is Hans. The figure of Hans is more dominant in the text than any other characters. Hans and Sonja don't describe the experience that they had in the Dutch East Indies as an adventure, and the word adventure or avontuur doesn't exist in the text. And lastly, the adventure that Hans and Sonja went through wasn't planned, but it was war and conflict in the Dutch East Indies forced them to flee their home and have a journey outside their ordinary life. So what does Hans' characterization tell us? So in the page 20, his fathers had to leave their home because he was a soldier and he had to go to the war with other Dutch soldiers. In this chapter, his father said farewell. You can see that the sentence "fuck the Japanese" indicates that his father is going to the war. Hans didn't show any fear about what happened. Instead, he saw a sign of bravery by mimicking his father through the usage of iron pen as helmet. So what does it mean? In this fragment alone, Hans is portrayed as a brave figure. Brave figure of the main protagonist is a sign of adventure. So from the characterization of the story itself, give an aspect of adventure. In the first stage, you can see some of habits that Hans did when he lived peacefully in Surabaya. He went to school and had a home and ate regularly. If we connect it with the concept of adventure, that this fragment shows that Hans was living in his ordinary course, which everything seems normal to him. In the second stage, he lived in a camp and he was hungry all the time because he didn't get enough food. The middle stage shows a significant difference from the initial stage. Hans didn't live in his house and now he was living in a camp. The significant differences mark an ordinary course of the text, which Hans lived outside his normal life. And in the final stage, where the war has ended, Hans could live peacefully in the Netherlands with his father. This fragment shows an ordinary course where he got to live with his family again and enjoy normal life again. So what does it mean? The plot which shows the shift of ordinary course to an ordinary course and the back again to ordinary course give an aspect of adventure. As for the setting, I'm showing a fragment which tells the situation of camp. The camp was full, but there is a part that needs to be highlighted in this fragment, which is the sentence that says it wasn't that bad. So, what does it tell? Camp is not a place for children. It's full of threat, violence, suffering, and wickedness. But Hans still perceived the setting positively and he didn't reject the camp. And he kept living in this unusual place. So, there is a sign of adventure in the setting itself. So going into the conclusion, the adventure of Weg uit can be portrayed through 3 intrinsic elements: characterization, plot, and space. As for the characterization, the character Hans, who is depicted as brave and heroic, reinforces the adventure aspect. As for the plot, the initial stage represents the ordinary course. In the middle stage, there is a shift from the ordinary course to the unusual course. And in the final stage, the text attempts to shift the unusual course back to the ordinary course. And events in the middle stage show aspects of adventure, such as elements of optimism, dangers, wandering, and effort to survive. And as for the space, the Dutch East Indies represent as a unusual space through the portrayal of the Indies as a colony and a foreign land. and the embarked, represented as an unusual space, was interpreted positively by the figure of Hans.